3 or 4 people, including these 2 young people, came over to me and said, you're known as the queen of fun. Like, nobody can sell against you. Nobody can sell against you because my parties are fun. And I know it would seem obvious, but not everyone's parties are fun.
Why not?
Because they suck.
What does that mean?
They're more concerned about the perfect napkin than where the guests are getting their next drink or who's taking the code or something bizarre and surprising, like, dancing on the tables.
Today on The Messy Parts, we're having on celebrity wedding planner Marcy Blum. She's been at it for 35 years, having done events for Kevin Bacon, LeBron James, Billy Joel, and many billionaires who she can't mention due to NDAs. Now, you're going to want to listen to the whole conversation. She's a straight shooter. She's going to tell you how to ask people for advice who you might be afraid to ask advice from. She's going to tell you how to make fun your differential advantage. And she's also going to tell you how to get through that job that might not be so much fun. Listen till the end. You're going to want to tell your friends, subscribe, and also, of course, always drop us a review. Marcy, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. I like to start sort of at the beginning because I think, how we got here is a little bit about how we started. And I know that you grew up in the Bronx.
Yes,
and so
I did.
I wanted to just get a sense of what you were like back then. Because, I was struck by the fact that you wanted to go to performing arts school so much so that you didn't do well on your Riverdale exam. And I thought, what would that have been like if I'd done that in my home?
It was a different era. How old are you?
I'm 56 or 7.
Yeah, you're much younger. Yeah, this was 68, 70. It was a very different time.
But it shows a strength of character or of will that you...
That's not how my parents would have put it, but yes, thank you for putting it so eloquently.
But it's the truth, right? That you had so much
I knew I wanted to act at that point, and I had been taking acting lessons at American Academy and all sorts of other places since I was little bitty. So when I realized that there was a performing arts school, there was no question that's where I wanted to go.
You end up going to performing arts school because your first love was acting. And what was that like?
It was great. It was exactly as you see in the movie Fame. We smoked dope and danced in the cafeteria. A really fascinating bunch of people, students and teachers. And in those days, now it's merged with music and art, but in those days there was a music and art school and performing arts. Now it's Fiorella LaGuardia High School of the Performing Arts, and it's at Lincoln Center, but this was on 46th Street.
My daughter went to LaGuardia, and I remember calling once to ask a question, and the Fame music came on, and I was like, I'm ready to dance on the cafeteria tables. Because I also was we grew up with Fame. But you didn't really go into acting when you finished.
I did some street theater at 14 years old, which is insane. And then some street theater when we moved to Vermont, but I was over it by then.
Natasha also went, and then she did not pursue that actually when she
What is
left.
she doing?
She actually now works for a PR firm in their film department. Oh. So using some of her cultural...
the people in events in general, the larger world of event planning, production, whatever, an enormous amount came out of theater.
Why is that?
Oh, it's, you're working on something, get it up and open, and then, have a defined time to do it. And you don't get a lot of time to rehearse once, once it's happening. And I think people in my business tend to be very dramatic, for better, for worse.
And you put on a show.
Yeah, basically.
So you leave high school and join a commune in Vermont.
We started a commune. I didn't join one.
Oh, okay. This is even better. Because I always thought that would be kind of amazing. As a kid who was always looking for belonging, like a commune seemed amazing.
So I think there were about 15 or 16 of us. And we all put in whatever money we had, and my boyfriend's parents gave us $5,000, and we bought a farm in Marshfield, Vermont.
How did that work?
Not well.
What does that mean?
Well, I was 16. Most of my friends were 16, 17. My boyfriend was 19. We had no idea what we were doing. We just didn't want to be here.
And so when it didn't work out, you moved back home?
Not immediately. I sat in a room for a year, but then I moved back home.
Well, I'm interested in the sitting in a room for a year.
Oh, but I'm not going to tell you about that.
Well, you don't have to go into intricate details.
You read my memoir when it comes out.
Well, you can definitely put me up for a pre-order. I just find so many people are, particularly this younger generation, is either looking for permission or when they hit sort of these various bumps where they don't know what they want to do or, they want to try something different, get kind of stuck. Both of us have had experiences where, you pursue something, it doesn't work out. Is there a lesson in like how you picked yourself back up in that moment?
It's so much more complicated than that. Not that you're being simplistic. I'm just saying the way I think about it, because I don't think in retrospect I should have been living with my boyfriend at 16, probably wasn't a great idea. There were so many things that were going on in all of us, we were crazy. And for our, middle class, predominantly Jewish parents, it was like we'd been abducted by aliens. Now if your kid was smoking dope upstairs, you'd know it. They had no idea because we were the first. So they would they didn't know what hit them. I went on a cruise with my parents in my junior year of high school. And then I came back and started drawing flowers on my face and wearing tablecloths to school. And, they really were like in a state of shock. All of our parents. It's never as bad as you think it is. I really thought life was over.
At 16.
18. By then I had already,
And so you move back home after that period.
Yeah.
And I think I read you watched a lot of TV.
Tons.
I said, TV was amazing. I still think it's amazing.
Let's Make a Deal was fabulous.
Yeah. And so you're watching TV and you decide somehow, okay, acting wasn't for you. You tried your hand at the Commune. I kind of love this because people think like, oh, we all know what we want to do. Like people probably think like,
I say that to people all the time.
You're going to,
especially now that everyone's going to live to 150, you can have gazillion careers.
So how did you then discover that food was your passion?
My mother was a great cook. She was a great cook. She was a great hostess. She, we were raised with Julia Child, the television pulled up to the kitchen, my mother cooking. She was really good. My grandmother was really good. And so I always liked it. And my brother and his girlfriend were living in Paris. My brother's a writer. And his first girlfriend, he was writing his first book. And she called me one day and said, your parents are losing their minds. You have to do something. Why don't you apply to Cordon Bleu and come live with us? So I was not going, but I thought I'd shut everybody out and apply. I applied. It wasn't hard to get into anything. You could apply with a check, but they took the check, and I was like, oh shit, now I have to go.
Well, with that comes going to Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not so bad.
And except that I wanted to stay in my room and watch Let's Make a Deal. I was not up for going to Paris at all. It was not, I did not want to do anything. I did not want to do anything.
Do you think you were depressed?
Are you being facetious?
No, I'm being serious.
Oh, yeah, no, I was a mess.
I'm going to pause on that for a second because oftentimes when we're depressed, it's actually hard to get out of that state, right? As a parent who's had kids who've had all kinds of things in their lives.
I also think, in those days, my therapist was very Freudian and certainly didn't believe in, any medication or pharmaceuticals or anything, which would have made a big difference. Because I was usually, or at least in my experience, anxiety and depression are, lovers. So you're anxious and depressed and you just don't want to do anything to upset yourself. And Let's Make a Deal was about as much excitement as I could take at that point.
And yet you found your way to Cordon Bleu in Paris.
I was very lucky because my mother was extraordinary and she was like, you're doing this. And Cordon Bleu is really, sort of housewifery. Learning how to cook haute cuisine so you could bag a husband was probably more what they had in mind. It's not what I had in mind, but I don't think it was, I just thought, whatever, I have to do something. I'll do that.
What happened after that?
Well, I came back to New York and I had realized that I really liked it. And I took what in those days we would call housewife cooking classes. And I took just about every single one you could take. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just took tons of classes. And there's a lovely gentleman named John Clancy, who was the chef for the Foods of the World cookbooks. So I don't know if you remember the Time Life Foods. There was like a series of 100, more than that. And I took his classes and we became very good friends. And he was very, very talented. Extraordinary man. He said, you should consider doing this professionally. So he wrote a letter to CIA. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. So fine, let's try that.
And was CIA filled with housewives?
No, there were no women.
No women
at all. We were
all.
the first class of women.
Yeah.
There
50?
were 50 of us, yeah.
And so what was that like?
bizarre. I lived off campus. I was 23. But when we went, it was, my parents' friends thought I was going to like an auto mechanic school. It was not a sexy thing to be going to cooking school. It was like ridiculous.
I
and
think
all the
Food
guys
Network changed that, honestly.
Yeah, it was a combo. Yeah. And then, all the guys in my class that were they were there on a GI scholarship. I mean, no, and there are a lot of well-known chefs from David Burke to Bobby, I think, to a lot of well-known chefs who were, I got an award from school like 3 years ago, and they were teasing because we called it the fuck up awards because all of us were up there going, well, I didn't know what I was doing. Roy Choi, who used to be a drug dealer, we got the award the same day we was like, let's see what happens. The CIA saved us.
The CIA. There's so many acronyms that now mean different things.
Yes.
So anyway, you're one of 50 women. And one of the things I find happens often when we go into these rooms where we're the only or the few is that you sort of have to conform to fit in, to just get the education, right? So that you're not standing out. Was it like that there?
I mean, the chefs definitely didn't want women there. I mean, when a chef would say to me, come sit on my lap and discuss your grade, I wasn't like shocked and I didn't punch him. I was like, this is where it goes. This is how it happens, right? So
I'd say I had that experience in the 80s and I wasn't shocked.
Yeah, and this was I was like, okay.
So you graduate and it's very difficult to get a job.
Again, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, really. I mean, I had delusions of grandeur aside from anything else, but I had applied to Lutece. But I got a letter back, which I have to find one of these days because people keep asking about it, that just said, your grades are wonderful, blah, 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 blah. We don't hire women. I mean, they may still not hire women. They wouldn't put it in writing.
Wouldn't put it in writing,
yeah.
right. Mm-hmm. So you end up at a golf club?
I was a sous chef at the Quaker Ridge Golf Club in Larchmont.
Mm-hmm. I know the Quaker Ridge.
Yes, a lot of people know.
Yes,
it.
And I bet what were you cooking at Quaker Ridge?
I was a sous chef, so you'd have these stupid country club lunches where you'd have to do 4,000 burgers, or you'd have lobster night, or you'd have to clean soft shell crabs, and that it was it wasn't very glamorous cooking.
Not Lutece.
No, it was definitely not Lutece.
How do you find your way to events?
I was teaching cooking. I was teaching at Gimbel's.
Oh.
Once a week, I was consulting for a couple of restaurants, people I knew. I worked at Maxwell's Plum as the garde manger, which was really the parsley lady. They just let me throw parsley on the plates. And then my brother, who was writing for the New York Times at the time, he was the head investigative journalist. My brother and my now ex-husband were equally good friends with Ed Koch, who was councilman then. It was before he was mayor. And they were all out having lunch with Ed. Ed said, how's Marcy? My brother said, miserable. She hates her job. And Peter Ashkenazi, now my ex-husband, who was sitting at lunch too, said, I'm opening a bunch of restaurants. And Ed said, so hire her. So he did. So, because nobody wanted to mess with Ed. So he hired me as a food consultant. And then we opened a place called the U.S. Steakhouse on 51st Street. And years later, he bought Luchow's, but we were already married by then. We had a whole bunch of restaurants, and I hired a lot of kids from CIA. I hired the chefs. I did the menus. We did a lot of private parties. And then we used to do, when Ed became mayor, we did catering at Gracie Mansion. Mm-hmm. And then people started asking me, can you do things outside of where you're working? And, I think I was 26, so I could do anything. I was like, of course.
I had two questions for you that relate to that. One is that nowadays, kids take jobs and they're not happy. They don't even have to be kids. Adults take jobs. Many people take jobs and they're not happy. And you kept being able to just move forward, right? And also, you don't seem to have suffered from imposter syndrome.
Oh, Jesus. I went to school to CIA 2 weeks ago, and they decided to build a walk of fame, like based on the Hollywood Stars walk. And big deal, they got $1 zillion of donations, including some students. And there were 10 of us who got the first stars, 9 really fabulous, well-known chefs, and me. I couldn't stop laughing all day. I was like, if my parents were watching this, they must be roaring because I was such a screw up. And so the fact that they chose, I don't know what they were thinking. I guess they needed more females, whatever. It was Susan Feniger, Sarah Moulton, Dean Fearing, Larry Forgione. I mean, we all know each other. And I was like, I am definitely should not be getting a star on this same Walk of Fame. So as talk about imposter syndrome.
You invented wedding planning.
I don't know about that, but anyway, is that something to give someone a star for? It was just, vis-a-vis these other people, I was like, and I said to one of my girlfriends, I was like, if imposter syndrome were fatal, I would have died today, because that was exactly, even just standing there with them, I was like, this is hilarious.
Well, I'm going to stop you, because as somebody who's been a chief marketing officer who's ran big events, I know how complicated events are. And you've done events for people who are celebrities, LeBron James, I could go on, Kevin Bacon, not easy people, stars. I mean, amazing in their own right, right?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily easy. So this is such an interesting moment, because I would definitely think you're worthy of a star.
Well, you see that, and I will say back to you that I'm a better marketer than I am at anything else. So there you go.
I know. We never feel like we're successful. I don't know what it is. And yet here you are. This is amazing.
I think, if you're a certain type of person, if you're raised in a certain type of household, there is perhaps a time in your life when you don't want to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you're like, job that you would hate, that maybe I would quit now in a second. I wanted to prove to myself that I could actually stick with something, even if it wasn't what I had in mind, so I dragged my ass up to Larchmont, because I just wasn't going to miss work, because I was so used to not doing anything. I think I wanted to prove to myself that I could at least
You weren't going to quit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you start doing events, and first of all, I think Stephen Pollan is who introduced you to Kevin Bacon.
Correct.
Stephen Pollan I knew because I was at Macmillan as a book publisher. I've had like 60 jobs. He had this book called Life Scripts. And so that's how I got to know him. And he also, he was everybody's lawyer. But he was such a character.
He was very eccentric, interesting. And how he knew Kevin. His daughter, Tracy, who's Michael J. Fox's wife, had lived with Kevin for a year. And when they broke up, Stephen and Kevin stayed friends. And then, so when Kevin met Kira, he introduced me to them.
Super connected family. And one of the things I wondered is that, social capital is a thing, right? So Stephen Pollan knew lots of people. He would, if you were his client, he would introduce you to people. Is there a lesson we can extrapolate from sort of, because relationships clearly played a big part in your life.
And not as big a part of it as they should have. And I don't think I was as exploitive as I should have been.
Interesting word. Do you think you should have done it more?
No question.
What does that mean?
I thought it was unseemly to be as pushy as I should have been, because
needy. Who wanted to seem needy?
Perhaps, but nobody cared. I mean, you could have done it, because I see people doing it all the time and nobody seems to care. The other piece of that is, there's a lot of people in my business who are extremely successful. There's a whole coterie of this, certain type of person who is a party planner or whatever, and I never fit that mold either.
What does that mean?
Well, a lot of people went to Riverdale Country School, and then they all went to Penn. Gazillions of people on the Upper East Side. They're all party planners. They all went to Penn. Darcy Miller kinds of people who, worked for Martha Stewart and then handed out jobs right and left, and not to me. I was always a little
an outsider
out there. Yeah, very much so. Mm-hmm.
So then you basically start getting asked to do events.
Yes.
And you start your business. What made you do that?
Probably Tony Robbins. Anything about Tony Robbins?
Are you being serious?
Yeah. not Tony
But you
himself.
went to the seminar?
I went to lots of seminars. I did a lot, and I absolutely hated what I was doing. I hated working in the restaurants for Peter. I didn't know what I was doing once again. And Tony, one of his most basic principles, and the ones that actually make sense, and not that they all do, is, it's two things. One, if you, do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And also, people ordinarily, they are motivated not by going towards pleasure, but by avoiding pain. Mm-hmm. It hit me, and I was like, whatever I do, I can't be as miserable as I am doing this. So I put an ad in New York Magazine.
To start the business.
To plan weddings.
To plan weddings.
Yeah.
Well, why weddings?
I can't remember. Somebody must have asked me to do something. And
I
know it was parties at the beginning, but the ad was weddings, because I realized that was the thing that was going to, seduce people.
Why did you realize that?
When you're in the business, when you're in restaurant business and everything, there's a ton of people doing parties and things, but weddings even then was a very specific thing people needed help.
And was the first wedding Kevin?
And then Peter and I had gotten married, and I was like, this is a disaster. People really need to help someone. because this is horrible.
Wait, what does that mean?
No, I mean, doing it yourself is horrible.
Oh, doing
and I
your
thought I
own
invented
wedding.
it, which
I
I
see.
did not. But I thought I invented it. I was like, what a clever idea.
So where'd you get married?
Wave Hill, and Ed was mayor, and he basically gave us the keys. And I had, I'm from Riverdale. The first place I ever got high was Wave Hill. So it was like, how perfect. All my friends came and cooked. We had the restaurants. We borrowed china from the Côte Basque. We borrowed, the silver from some other place. We borrowed tons of stuff from our own restaurants.
In fact, your wedding was the inspiration for wedding planning in some ways.
In some ways, yes.
Was the first wedding you did Kevin and...
No. Although he keeps saying that, I keep correcting him because I just did Kira's 60th birthday and he introduced me as like, we were her first gig. I was like, no, you weren't. It was 38 years ago now. But it was in the first year. And it was definitely my first celebrity. And he wasn't really a celebrity then.
And that put like a real marker for you on the board.
Yeah, I guess. And then writing, again, the years are all mushed up there. But when writing Weddings for Dummies.
Yeah, because that was a big book.
Well, in those days, they actually paid for those books. I mean, now, as you would know.
Like I said, I did the Idiots Guys.
Oh,
so you did the Dummies Guys.
They paid me like $60,000 or something, which is a lot of money for, that kind of book. And I got residuals. Because
it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. Super helpful, those books. You start your own business. And, what I love is like, it was just never linear, right? I mean, people look from the outside and they must think like,
But the kids, I mean, I was at a dinner party for planners last night and there were like 18 of us at all different stages. Most of us are doing very expensive events now. And there were 2 women there who had written a business plan in business school for this, which I thought was the funniest thing ever. I was like, you should read my business plan.
Where it's on the back of a napkin?
Maybe.
That's interesting because here you are at an event with people of different ages. What's the big difference you see between like sort of the experience you had, I had, and
I think they're making money right off the bat. It took me about 25 years, which is certainly...
Really?
Oh, yeah.
What did you learn over the 25 years to be better at the money?
I had 2 very good friends in the business who were very business-like. 13, 14 years ago, they both bullied me because I was charging flat fees and now nobody is. But in those days, that was the industry standard. And they were like, you're going to starve to death if you keep doing this. So we switched to percentage.
Of what?
The total spend.
The total spend.
Yeah. So, and I've been doing, $5 million, $20 million weddings. So the percentage is really,
amazing.
Makes a big difference.
It means
I have a house.
But so what did you learn about that? Because that's a big lesson for women. I find that we often give away the things we do, not really valuing it.
We're also, generally speaking, much more apt to make a compromise. And this was the conversation at dinner last night. Most of us charge 20% now, between 15 and 20%. We were discussing what happens when a client hires a headliner, like Maroon 5, or I charge my company, there's 10 of us, I charge a production fee, usually somewhere around $50,000 to do the green room, produce whatever, make the connections. Most of the guys in the business charge their full percentage on that, meaning, so like Elton John is 5.5.
5.5.
5,500,000.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gaga's about the same. I mean, we all make inquiries all the time. So that means they're making, 20%
so they take the full
on
percentage.
The headliner.
Why don't you do that?
Because I think it's piggy.
So you have values, like you actually...
Well, I don't know about that, but I
You're not sure.
I draw the line somewhere, yeah. I think it's, yes, I mean, part of it is because I think it's piggy. Part of it is because I am, yes, needy. I like my clients to like me, and I think they're, and I'd like them to come back. And I think,
Do you think they don't come back for the people who take the full percentage?
Yeah.
No.
I'm
really?
not sure, yeah.
I know. We all want to be liked. It's a curse.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, nobody's in our business, my business, who doesn't like to be liked. There are people who have, lesser addictions to it, but certainly, yeah.
It goes back to the acting.
Well, it's also selling. I am selling every single day, and these people are going to spend a year and a half with me, or for a 70th birthday, at least 6 months with me, and they have to like us. Or not only they're not going to spend money, they're just not going to do it.
You have 10 people on your team. You manage people of different ages. I mean, 10.
I know 4 full-time.
Yeah,
I have 4 full-time, and I have 5 full-time now, and I have 5 that are permalancers.
Yeah. And then you obviously flex for production and things like that. What are you seeing with sort of younger generations, and how can we be helpful? Because, there's this trope that like younger people are, lazy, or...
I wouldn't doubt that. No, look, I don't have kids. So I don't,
But you have employees.
Yeah.
And
so
freelancers.
I was on a panel 2 weeks ago for something talking about Gen Z, and I was the first person to speak, which I thought was bizarre. But I said the two things that I have noticed in relation to planning a wedding, they're very involved with their grandparents, and they want to make sure that like they're going to do it in somewhere they can get the grandparents to. And one after the other, each and every one. That's one of the first things come out of their mouth, which I thought was interesting.
They want to be connected to their grandparents? Interesting.
The family.
Yeah.
And as far as, the people who work for me, I pay a lot. And I pay a lot because I don't like to be aggravated. I don't want to hear them bitching all the time. And I pay a lot. My clients expect a lot. We're working for the 1/10 of the 1%. All our clients are, with rare exception, billionaires. If they're not billionaires, they're almost billionaires. They, have no patience. So I expect a lot. And so I pay for it. And that seems to work.
Yeah.
If I were paying less, I think it'd be a lot more difficult.
One of the things I think about is that, one, in some ways, you said something interesting about the events that you throw on, which is that you're not so much going for perfect, although I'm sure you are going for perfect as well, which is that when the event goes well, people feel seen. Like it's the details and that sense of, the experience more so than like the perfect napkin, even though I'm sure you also have perfect napkins.
Yeah, but I will tell you one of the most gratifying things that's happened to me in many, many years at this dinner last night. And there's a couple of women there who I've known a long time. And then there were people I've known, only a couple of years because they're new in the business and I still lose jobs. Then we all lose jobs to each other. But 3 or 4 people, including these 2 young people, came over to me and said, you're known as the queen of fun. Like nobody can sell against you. Nobody can sell against you because my parties are fun. And I know it would seem obvious, but not everyone's parties are fun.
Why not?
Because they suck.
What does that mean?
They're more concerned about the perfect napkin than where the guests are getting their next drink or who's taking the code or something bizarre and surprising, like, dancing on the tables. One of my dear friends, her parties are exquisite. Maybe the most beautiful in the business. And she's always saying to me, just sell the fun because what she is selling is something completely else. And her client is definitely not my client.
What is your definition of success?
Waking up and going, okay, this is okay. I like this house. Nobody's sick. I love my husband at the moment. I love my friends at the moment.
Does that come and go? Is that why you say at the moment?
Yeah, no, people are very difficult. And if I worked for a second job for a very well-known billionaire this summer when I had no patience for anyone, not even my animals, so I usually have endless patience for it.
And then you ask yourself, is it worth it?
Well, we made a lot of money. So yeah, it was worth it. You have to look at them and go mortgage payment or new bathroom or, in your head.
But those are good tricks. So when
otherwise
you're
you'd never sit through a meeting with any of these people otherwise.
So I like that trick, which
You
is
certainly don't want to have drinks with them.
You're like, okay, this job will get me X.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we started a couple of years ago, probably 4 years ago, is we do this thing called the longest table, which you may not have heard of. But basically, we rent tables and chairs and we place them out here on 21st Street and we invite neighbors to a potluck as a way just to have neighbors get to know each other. And this year we did it and over 2,000 people came.
Seriously?
Yeah. We started it coming out of COVID because we thought we need to know our neighbors not only when you need Lysol wipes. Like, shouldn't we just know our neighbors?
Yeah.
And it's been this incredibly joyous thing that's really changed our experience of Chelsea.
Amazing.
We've been here for over 20 years. And now, 50 of them will have happened over the course of the year in the US.
Oh.
But the thing that's amazing about it, right? I think I told you as a C-suite executive, you're always worried about perfect, you're managing down, is it's completely grassroots and you learn grace and trust and you don't worry about perfect. What you worry about is people having an inclusive experience. Like people show up and say, I didn't make a reservation. And you say, there's always room at the table. Or, you know what, I didn't bring the right food. And it's like, it's not about the food. Although, of course, people bring amazing food. Yeah. And I think that's what you're describing when you're describing fun.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And then there's also, you get clients who, we did a wedding, a 5-day wedding at Adair Manor in the spring. And I love these people. They're fabulous. And we took over the manor where everyone was staying. And we sort of did, I'm sure you knew about Sleep No More, right?
The show that you walk around the house.
And I was like, let's do an homage to Sleep No More. Not that it was going to be Lady Macbeth and Rebecca, but we put different things in each room. I had like leprechauns in the closet with boxes and boxes of Lucky Charms, which was hilarious because you can't get them in Ireland anymore because they're toxic. It was like an inside joke. So we had leprechauns handing out tons of Lucky Charms, and you'd go up to another room and the baker was in there like screaming at people. It was just great. It was like living theater. That was the welcome party. I was like, nobody wants to sit in a dress and 3 nights in a row. And there was like, it's not fun. People want to have fun, and it's their vacation also. They're taking off, a certain amount of days to go to Ireland. Like, let's do something fun. And it was...
You are a marketer because you put the consumer being the guest sort of at the center of your story.
That's what we sell. We sell, you're hiring us and you're the host, but if your guests aren't happy, you're not going to be very happy at the end of the day, even if you think you are. People come in and say, no mushrooms. I hate mushrooms. I was like, well, I don't give a shit what you hate. Like, talk about what the majority of people
want. Yeah.
Want. You're hosting a party.
You're forever a theater person and a marketer.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask you sort of faster questions, right?
Okay.
Rapid fire. How do you stay curious and relevant?
I think I'm chronologically damaged. I really still think I'm like maybe 28. And I go out a lot. I read a lot of, things. And everything that I do, I think of how it would relate to an event. And I'm always shocked now, being an old hippie, I'm kind of shocked at all the things that, like a new band or something that I don't know about, was really like painful.
Your messiest moment on a scale of 1 to 10, what would it have been? What number and what would it have been?
I had terrible panic attacks when I first reemerged. So I don't know if it's one specific moment, but basically, from my parents' apartment. Oh, mm-hmm. So it was just a generally messy year.
What do you think is a career myth that you think is a waste of time?
I would say that people who decide they want to be an event planner and go work for or apprentice for or act as an intern for an event planner is not the smartest thing to do. You'd be much smarter if you'd go work for an interior designer or a caterer or one of the gazillion facets that make up this business, and you'd be bringing much more to the table when you go work.
What would you tell someone who's having a crisis in confidence?
Xanax.
Do they still give that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. When was the last time you cried?
What time is it?
That's what everybody says. Yesterday?
I'm sure. My darling husband, who's 20 years younger than I am, who is just wonderful, wonderful. We've been together a million years. Actually, is going to need a kidney very soon. He had a transplant 20 years ago out of nowhere, and now he's going to need another one. And I read something in People magazine yesterday that some young athlete died from kidney disease, and I just, started crying. So that was yesterday.
Oh, okay. One thing you'd never do again.
Acid.
They're very specific. My final question is really just about this issue of reaching out to people, right? Because we could all be better at reaching out without being obnoxious or pushy, right? So I think a lot of people have anxiety about that. And yet that ask can make all the difference. The ask for help or the ask for connection.
I could show you 30 emails in the past month about, I'd love to pick your brain. I was like, well, guess what? No, I'm not Mother Teresa. But if you came with, I just read blah, 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 and I was wondering what you thought about that. Or I have a specific question. I have a client. I have someone who's reached out to me and they want this, 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 and this, and I don't know how to charge. That is something I'm happy to do because I can help you. It's not amorphous. I'll get on the phone with you. I'll spend an hour on the phone with you going, well, how many people is it? Blah, blah, blah. That I feel. But this, how did you, I don't want to have to repeat my life story 800 times all the time. And I don't think it bears a lot of relevance. I don't think it's a Aesop's fable. You have to bring something to the table. And when photographers and people like that ask me constantly, how do we get to work for you? I said, send me a gig and I'll always reciprocate.
I value exchange. Yeah. I think there has to be value exchange.
And again, talk about Gen Z. I mean, they really, I hate to use that word entitled because I would imagine I grew up in an apartment in Riverdale where, I was shocked when I found out we weren't rich. So I'm pretty entitled. But I think they don't understand that it is a, quid pro quo. That you don't just get to walk into someone's office and take up their time if you have no connection. And of course, I have lots of friends and my friends have kids or they have cousins or whatever who all want to think they want to be an event planner. So those people I have to have time for, but otherwise, no.
We said before we started the interview, as we were doing research, we were going to love you because you were going to be straightforward, and you have fully delivered.
Why, thank you. I
love it. A true New Yorker.
I don't know even how to be disingenuous. Well, that's not true. I'm really disingenuous with clients, but with real people.
Well, we all have clients. We have to be disingenuous with that.
Otherwise, you have to tell them what it's going to cost at the beginning, and then that would be it. It would never,
Well, thank you so much. I very much appreciate your coming on. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. The bonus is we're going to ask you to tell 10 friends, share, and of course, drop a review. The more you do that, the better guests we're going to get, and they're going to share their messy parts, which only helps all of us. So we're digging into the mess behind success. We're going to demystify that, give you tips that you can use, and also remind all of us that we're not in this journey alone.